I'm ready.
15 minutes, you're on.
Thank you, Counselor. Good evening, everyone. My name is Peter Stamness. I'm the Director of Project Development for New Hampshire DOT, and I oversee the development of the 10-year plan and the delivery or implementation of the plan as it relates to the highway and bridge mode in the plan. There is a virtual component to this hearing tonight, and before I get into introducing the rest of the DOT staff here, I'm wondering if Bill Watson, you can let us know how many folks we have out there virtually.
Good evening, Pete, and thank you. So far, we have 4 people that are attending virtually.
Very good, thank you. Here with me tonight, Commissioner Victoria Sheehan, Glenn Davison, project manager, Linda Dusenberry, also here on the support staff, Lucy St. John, and Sharon Allaire out in the entryway. I have about 15 minutes of slides to present, and these are very high-level slides overall, and we have a lot more detail on our website for each one of the areas that I'll be covering. If you go to our website, which is located, New Hampshire DOT .gov, nh.gov DOT, as shown on the screen up here, you'll be able to look at more detail for each one of those subject matter areas. And we also have an online survey that I encourage you to take. A little bit about the process. So we're currently in the 21 through 2030 10-year plan. That's our current plan. That's a current work plan. And it was approved in June of last year. Soon thereafter, we began the process to update the 10-year plan, and began with a Regional Planning Commission phase, which culminated in projects that were submitted to DOT this past spring for consideration and inclusion into this draft. We're currently in the Gasset phase. It's about a 5-month phase where we review and take testimony from 21 public hearings. We'll then meet again in November with Gasset to update the draft based on commentary that we received throughout the public hearing stage. From there, the updated plan goes to the governor for review and updates, and from the governor it goes to the legislature for additional debate, hearings, modifications, following by signing into law in June of next summer. And the cycle begins again. So it's a 2-year cycle, and over and over again. So from an outline standpoint, Councilor Gatsis provided some highlights here. So each one of these bullets has more detail on our website. And I'm not going to go through these. We'll go through each of the areas at a high-level summary. So, funding summary. Overall, state funding is reduced. So, our revenue projections show that the state funds over time are lessened, and the projections have reduced. So, mainly due to COVID, and people are driving less, buying less gas, paying fewer tolls. The programs that are impacted by these lower revenue projections are Turnpike Program, Betterment Program, and SB 367 Program. So the Betterment Program is 3 cents on the gas tax, and the program makes improvements to roads that are not eligible for federal funds. And the areas that are impacted by this revenue reduction are paving programs and the state aid bridge program. SB 367 is a 4 cents on the gas tax, and that's used for many items, but where it's impacted is that state aid bridge program for the most part. So that's the municipal program that does work on municipal bridges. The Turnpike program is impacted, and again, it's based on reduced toll collections. And how that program is affected is on the capital side. So there are 5 capital projects along the Turnpike, which will be delayed from anywhere from 2 to 4 years, again, due to the lower revenue projections. On the federal side, we anticipate funding increase, and the current act coming out of the House that's being talked about over the last month or so, Infrastructure and Investment and Jobs Act, IIJA, for New Hampshire. It's $1.14 billion over the term of 22 through 26, averages about $228 million per year, apportionment for New Hampshire. And this apportionment level is about a 24% increase overall from where we are currently with the 10-year plan, with $183 million per year. And this apportionment is similar to the Senate Environment and Public Works plan that was a bipartisan plan coming out of the Senate. And this apportionment level is what we've used for fiscal constraint on the federal highway category of funding. Also included in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act is $242 million advanced general fund appropriations for New Hampshire, which includes $45 million per year in additional funding for bridges and $3.4 million per year for electric vehicle infrastructure program. This $242 million in advanced general fund appropriations is not included in the constraint model for the 10-year plan currently. We had recommended a more conservative approach to set our constraint level. Other federal aid plans that have involved here from a COVID relief fund standpoint, CARES, CRISA, and ARP is $133 million across all modes of transportation. Strategies to build this draft of the 10-year plan. DOT made some recommendations to GASSET, and they concurred in these strategies. And many of these are very similar to what we've had in previous years from an update standpoint. Focus on maintenance and preservation of the existing network of roads and bridges. Continue to invest in core system programs and build on our successes in road and bridge conditions statewide. So we're making incremental improvements to improve level of service across the statewide network. We're dedicating $50 million to Regional Planning Commission priority projects, again, similar to what we've done in previous updates. We're assuming additional funds for federal reauthorization, and in order to prioritize how to use those funds, these bullets outline our prioritization: accelerate existing 10-year plans projects where possible, fully fund existing 10-year plan projects, convert Garvey bonded projects to federal aid funds, modify existing programs to improve projected conditions in outer years by including inflationary adjustments, and then last, consider new projects in outer years to improve safety and capacity. We're going to continue to invest in other essential modes of transportation, including transit, rail, airports, and active transportation. General funding synopsis. This table is the rainbow chart, and it's included in the draft 10-year plan, and it identifies investments included in the 10-year plan by funding category. So all the various colors along the top are the funding categories, and each box with a number in it includes the investments for that funding category by fiscal year. It's a $4.4 billion plan, which is about a $248 million increase over the current 10-year plan. The road and bridge mode is $3.7 billion, 83% of the plan. Other modes, including rail, transit, and airport, $739 million, 17% of the plan. Federal highway categories, large funding source in the 10-year plan, 81% of the highway funding categories and 56% of the 10-year plan funding overall. And the use is prohibited for operations and maintenance. And what I will say is that each one of these categories has specific rules of what you can spend the money on and how you can spend it. And with very few exceptions can you move funds from one category to another. Some of the major funding adjustments included in this plan. And again, this is based on the apportionment that is in the, both in the Senate EPW plan and the front side of the IIJA, and that's in the House right now. Increased paving investment by $164 million. So we're inflating the paving programs and we're adding money to the programs to better meet our target mileage for miles of road paved, and also to improve condition overall on the network. Increased state bridge investment by $169 million. So we're inflating bridge programs. We're including both rehabilitation and replacement programs and maintenance and preservation programs on bridges. And we've included over $100 million in the outer years for Red List Bridge, within the Red List Bridge program. And that currently, those funds are currently not allocated to any specific bridges, but they'll be used to accelerate the removal of Red List bridges if and when they do come on the list. Converting Garvey bonding to federal aid. So there are a number of projects that in the current 10-year plan that were funded with Garvey bonds, and that's a bond backed by future federal aid. And net the debt service of $105 million. There's an increase on the federal program of $58 million. We're going to fully fund scope-constrained projects. So there are a number of projects that are in the current 10-year plan where we have been controlling the scope in order to meet fiscal constraint. So we've identified these projects, and we are adding $54 million across a number of those projects in order to increase the overall scope of the work to somewhere closer to where it was entered into the plan. The non-highway sources of federal funding adjustments are pending, and so increases on federal railroad, federal transit, and federal aviation modes in areas are not included in this plan at this point in time. When we get additional information coming out of the House, and hopefully we'll get some action this week on the act coming out of the House in Washington. State of the infrastructure, and this is our outcome slide on the road and bridge conditions. So on the upper left-hand corner is a graph which shows miles of road resurfaced on the state network. The black line to the left and the numbers to the left show actual miles paved between 2013 and current year. The lighter blue line and numbers to the right are what we expect to pave based on the investment level that we have in the draft 10-year plan. Overall paving miles decrease through the draft 10-year plans and through this draft, and we expect to include $88 million per year on average for resurfacing. Conditions for the next 4 years are expected to be 80% good or fair across the network, and that's above average, and we'd like to hold them that way. So for the next 4 or 5 years, we expect those conditions to be above average. In the later years, we're expected to decline by 30% to around 50% good or fair. And overall, Tier 3 and 4 roads are the lower volume roads on the statewide network are expected to decline the most with anticipated decreases in state funds. So in 2026, we lose the ability to spend that SB 367 revenue on rural roads and bridges because it's going to pay debt service, full debt service on a $200 million TIFIA note that was taken out to finish I-93 Salem to Manchester. And so what we want to do is to try to target our 500 miles per year in resurfacing. The statewide network is about 5,000 miles, and we try to do a 10-year cycle. So that's 500 miles per year, and if we can pay 500 miles per year, we can keep the road conditions across the statewide network above average. For state red list bridges, the graphic to the bottom, similar to the miles of road resurfaced, we are currently at 118 red list bridges on the state network. The numbers to the left of that are actual numbers over time, and the numbers to the right, the blue dot, is the projected numbers that we expect to see based on the investment in the 10-year plan. So we expect with the around $82 million per year average expenditure on the statewide network, we expect the red list bridge number to be reduced from 118 to 91 by the end of the 10-year plan. From an active transportation standpoint, continue to enhance active transportation opportunities by investing in active transportation components through construction projects. Investments through mandated federal programs, including transportation alternatives, recreation trails, and CMAQ funding. So the current TAP program round 2021 is included, the 13 projects that were identified in this round, and they're included in this book of project listings for the draft 10-year plan. Public transit, we continue to address transit challenges. For demand response, there's limited services for the elderly and disabled. Service frequency, limited in urban areas, and route coverage, not enough coverage in rural areas. With that, I'll turn it over to Nate Miller from Southern New Hampshire Regional Planning Commission, and he will go through regional priorities. Ooh, let me screw up.
Well, good evening, everyone. I recognize a number of familiar faces in the audience tonight, but for those of you who don't know me, my name is Nate Miller. I'm the Deputy Executive Director of the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission. And over the next couple of minutes, I'm going to hit some of the regional highlights in this draft 10-year plan. If my slides advance. Oh, there we go. All right. A little bit about the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission. We serve 14 communities, centered obviously here in the city of Manchester. So our communities range from Francistown in the west to Deerfield in the east, Hooksett in the north to Windham in the south. So we have a variety, obviously, of urban communities, suburban communities, and rural communities. Overall, we just got the 2020 census figures for our 14 municipalities. We have a population now in the region of over 285,000 people, which makes us the most populous region in the state. Also, over the past 10 years, from 2010 to 2020, our region has grown at more than 7%. So it's a region that is populated, and it is a region that is growing faster than the state as a whole. So we have unique transportation challenges from a congestion and safety perspective as a variety of a result of all this growth. As Pete mentioned early in his presentation, we are one of 9 regional planning commissions, and every 2 years at the regional level, we send out a solicitation to our 14 municipalities, asking them what their needs are from a transportation perspective. We then take those needs, and our commissioners, who are appointed by all 14 of our municipalities, work together to evaluate and prioritize those projects, and we send those top regional priorities to our colleagues at New Hampshire DOT, and that's what forms the basis of the 10-year plan. Here in the city of Manchester, there are 5 commissioners, we call them, that are representatives of the city of Manchester on our commission. And I'd like to thank Dan O'Neill, Ray Clement, Peter Capano, Marcus Ponce de Leon, and Don Waldron for all of their time and effort over this 10-year plan cycle and their representation of the city of Manchester in that process. This does occur with all of the regional planning commissions, so it's not just our region that goes through this process, it happens in all 9. Based on the revenue projections that Pete highlighted in his presentation, DOT advised our region, the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission region, that we had approximately $8.55 million in projects that could be added in the region. And what we did as a starting point is we took a close look at the 10-year plan. And before adding new projects, our primary goal was to make sure that all of the existing projects that were already in the 10-year plan were fully funded and able to move forward according to their timelines. And we had 2 projects that we identified, existing projects in the 10-year plan, that became our focus in this update cycle because we determined that those projects were underfunded based on the engineering need. Those 2 projects are, the first one is in the town of Bedford. It's the Route 3 widening from Hawthorne Drive to the Manchester Airport Access Road. Very important project within the town of Bedford. That was one focus that we identified, that additional funding needed to be allocated to that project to bring it to the finish line. The second project was in the town of Londonderry, that being the intersection of Route 28 and 128, which is a particularly problematic safety concern in the town of Londonderry. Thanks to partnership with New Hampshire DOT, we utilized our regional allocation, and New Hampshire DOT assisted us in that process. And both of those projects in this 10-year plan, I'm pleased to report, are now fully funded. So thanks to the department, Pete, and your team for your willingness to work with us to get those projects fully funded and on the road to completion. Also in this 10-year plan, Pete mentioned briefly in his presentation the Transportation Alternatives Program. If you're not familiar with that program, it is a program that focuses on bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure primarily, in essence, non-motorized transportation infrastructure. We went through a solicitation, a statewide solicitation for Transportation Alternatives Program projects. Our region had, I believe, 6 different projects submitted. And I'm pleased to report that this 10-year plan includes the top 2 priorities in our region, that being in the town of Derry, a 1,900-foot extension of the Derry Rail Trail between Madden Road and the Londonderry town line, as well as here in the city of Manchester, a multi-use path along Canal Street between Granite Street and Brook Street. So bicycle pedestrian improvements are now coming for those 2 important needs. Also, as Pete mentioned early in his presentation, the statewide funding sources have been constrained due to the travel pattern changes resulting from the COVID pandemic. And in our region, that hits the most on the turnpike system. And as a result of the reduced revenue forecasts, as a result of the COVID pandemic, we are going to see some delays in some of the important high-profile turnpike projects in our region. So the Exit 6 project has been delayed 4 years in this 10-year plan due to those revenue constraints. The Exit 7 project delayed 3 years, and the F.E. Everett Turnpike widening, the completion of that project delayed 3 years. So it was scheduled for completion in 2025. It's now scheduled for completion in 2028. So unfortunately, the revenue forecasts that are resulting from the COVID pandemic have affected these projects. But I certainly hope that we can continue to work with our colleagues at New Hampshire DOT to evaluate those turnpike revenues, and if there's any opportunity or a faster rebound in those revenue sources to be able to advance these projects. In terms of regional public transportation needs, we're fortunate here in the city of Manchester to be served by the Manchester Transit Authority, which provides fixed route service throughout the city of Manchester, as well as in demand response services in Hooksett and Goffstown. There are two important funding transfers in this 10-year plan that support our regional public transportation network and our public transit providers. That is a $800,000 per year transfer to the Section 5310 program, which supports elderly and disabled transportation services, as well as the transfer of 25% of the congestion mitigation and air quality program to support public transportation needs statewide. Those transfers have made an important impact in this region, both in terms of the demand response services that Manchester Transit Authority and CART provide in Manchester, in Goffstown, in Hooksett, in Derry, and in Londonderry, all directly benefiting from these transfers. There are some needs also in closing that are not addressed in this 10-year plan due to funding constraints, but they are very much on our radar screen. As Pete mentioned, the process never stops. We're here talking about the 2023 to 2032 10-year plan. I am a planner by trade. I'm already thinking about the next 10-year plan, and these are some of the things that are already on the radar screen in our region that are going to play a role in the next 10-year plan. The conversion of Route 107 and Candia Road in Deerfield to a roundabout. In the town of Hooksett, I know that there's a keen interest in looking at the needs of the Route 3A corridor and making improvements there. There is a corridor study program in this 10-year plan, and we're hoping that there's a solicitation where those needs in the town of Hooksett can be addressed in that program. In Manchester, we're going to work with the city to scope, as part of the next 10-year plan, hopefully for consideration, a I-93 and 2nd Street engineering study, and also looking at interchange improvements at the Exit 8 area, those Wellington Road signalized intersections at I-93 Exit 8, looking at some improvements there, as well as on Hooksett Road and Campbell Street here in the city of Manchester. So there's a brief 5-minute overview of the regional needs in this 10-year plan, and I will yield the floor back to you, Pete.
I'm going to switch the screen, but I don't screw it up. Share. Next couple of slides are to provide you with some additional information to help you navigate the 10-year plan project listings book. So there are a couple of graphs and charts that you'll see within the book. The top chart is an all-funding chart and identifies planned expenditures by category. So the various categories are all along the top of the table, include pavement, bridges, rail, transit, airports, active transportation, and the pie chart to the left shows the basic percentages of the plan by category. Similarly, the rainbow chart, the bottom right, table shows investments by funding category, and also there's a pie chart that shows the percentage of the plan for each funding category from an investment standpoint. So each of the individual projects are listed alphabetically in the book. So you'll have, starting with Albany, number 1, it gives you the road and route information, scope of work, the funding. Area number 6 there is the funding and the phase of funding and the years of funding. Bottom right corner shows total project costs, and in this particular case there was some previous funding that was identified and that is outside the years of the 10-year plan, but that's also included here, so you get a total cost picture for the project overall. There's some items that we want to at least bring up for discussion purposes. Statewide 40915 is an exit sign renumbering project for the Tier 1 roads, and this is a project that we have included currently in this draft of the 10-year plan, and it's required from a Federal Highway Administration standpoint. And this project will renumber the exits. Currently, we have sequential numbering, and this project would renumber those exits based on mile marker reference. So it's, again, a project that we wanted to make sure people were aware of and that could offer commentary on if you choose to. The others are outside of the region. So last slide here, we did create an online survey for everyone to offer some commentary. We're trying to get as much input as possible on this plan. And so it's a 6 or 7 minute survey, and we encourage you to go to our website and take that and provide your feedback. That'll turn it back over to Councilor Gatsis for comments.
Thank you, Pete. When you can speak at this hearing, you need to fill out one of the blue cards. You don't know. So if you can speak, and I haven't got the blue card, but I can fill it out. You should know that. First up is Senator Lee Ellison.
Thank you,
Come forward so the all can see. No, face the all. The owl.
Face the owl.
Right there.
So, who am I speaking to?
You side, that'll be fine. There you go.
Perfect. Unaccustomed as I am to public speaking, it's very difficult. I see Representative Graham here. Representative Graham is the chairman of the Public Works Department in the House. Did a great job with the 10-year plan and did a great job with the capital budget. So thank you very much for a great job there. To all of you, thanks for coming, because public input is so important in terms of these projects. One of the critical issues is 6 and 7, and I notice they're being put off. 6 and 7 are dangerous points. I've driven that road to Concord for the last 30 years. I see accidents every day. Every day. And those yield signs on the entry point, Commissioner, a lot of people can't read it. I want to make that perfectly clear. We got a 50% graduation rate at some of our high schools. So they can't read it because they do not appreciate the fact when you say yield. Yield means slow down. Don't come down that ramp at full speed when people are coming down the highway. That's what happens. I got hit there one night. I can tell you it happens. Got hit there by a young woman who was cruising, just cruising down, bashed me, and moving. Her shepherd just dropped me to the side of the road. Really problematic. We have decreased tolls 3 times on the FE Everett Turnpike. 3 Merrimack tolls have been thrown out. That decreases our ability to fund turnpike projects. If I look at the lost revenue, and I'm on the Finance Committee at the Senate, I looked at that lost revenue, that inhibits our ability to make change. And we know we have to make change on the FE Everett Turnpike because of the bottle effect that takes place after you leave Cook's Toll. If you've been there on a Friday night trying to get north, it's a killer. If you're on a Sunday night trying to get south, it's a killer. Those things have to be looked at. There was mention made to the paving. We lose the TIFIA deal shortly. The 4.1% increase in the gas tax sunsets. That sunsets. All of that money, once the TIFIA program has ceased, all the money is going to be used to pay back the TIFIA loan. That inhibits our ability to do projects because we're going to lose all of that revenue to pay back the federal government for the low interest loan that we took. What was the value of that loan? 200 million?
200 million.
200, we have to pay back the $200 million loan. We're also paying back on the Conway bypass situation. We have to pay back, I think, 30 million.
Approximately.
Approximately 30 million. We have to put 7.9 million in general funds to help pay that off this year. We also funded the Department of Transportation for the $50 million in general fund revenue. So we have some concerns, and all of us should be concerned, because the thing that makes New Hampshire great, really, is the good roads, the black roads. When people come across that border, they want to see black roads. They don't want to see potholes. They want to see them paved. They want to see them clean. Tourists are the second largest source of revenue for this state. If people don't find that amenity available, you're not going to come. Those are the things that become paramount, and changes that have to be made. You've got to look at those. You know, we've relied on gas tax revenue for a long period of time. That's history, both at the national level and at the state level. That's highly problematic. There is a gravitation towards electric vehicles. That's got to be dealt with.
I know you do one or the other. Everybody gets to do
Okay, thank you very much. Does that mean I've exceeded my 2 minutes?
According to the commissioner, you exceeded
I was just bountiful in my praise. I'm going to continue that. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I've lived in this town for the last 50 years. I've watched the roads grow. I've watched the pavement disappear like it used to be in the old days. We want to make it better. But I think the two key issues are 6 and 7. Those are death traps. Don't anybody forget that. Slow down when you're entering, slow down when you're exiting. Believe me. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. Great to see you all. Thank you.
Next speaker is Andre Young.
Thank you very much, Dr. Francis. It's the Senator Alessandra and the DOT staff, Mr. King. My name is Andre Guerin. I'm the town administrator for Hudson, New Hampshire. I'm here to talk about a project that is currently not on the 10-year plan, but was previously on the 10-year plan, and that is the intersection improvement at the Route 3A Hampton Road intersection. It is the entry and exit point, the exit 11, the toll booth there. And to make that connection from the toll booth to Route 3A, you have to go via Hampton Road. That road is backed up in the morning, that road is backed up in the afternoon, and it needs to be fixed. I know that Hudson had this issue before it put down back in 2018 and failed to get the funding to move it forward, advance it forward. And its offense, although the price, the initial price for the project was $1.8 million, it ended up escalating to $4.8 million by the time we were done. And I think the voters were just unsure as to where the endpoint was there. Now we're at a point that something needs to be done in that intersection. And I know we're coming late to the game, and I've been in Hudson for 2.5 years. So I'm trying to get this back on the horizon because it needs to be fixed. It's a critical point between Hackett Hill Road and exit the Route 3A Main Street intersection. Those two have to work in harmony with each other because when one backs up, regardless of what you do at the Hackett Hill Road 3A intersection, it's going to have an effect back on Route 3A. So those two really have to be taking a look at in tandem with each other. So I know my time is almost up. If we can do whatever guidance that you can provide me and whatever assistance that you can provide to the town of Hudson for this intersection, it really needs to be on the scope of work over the next few years, if not tomorrow. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Next speaker, Kevin Shelton.
Hi, my name is Kevin Shepherd. I'm from the Manchester Department of Public Works. I'm the Public Works Director. I just came to speak in support of the 10-year plan. I appreciate the work that the DOT has done, Executive Council Gassas, and Senator Lou Delgado has always been a big supporter for public works in the city of Manchester. I'll reemphasize what he says regarding exit 6-7. We continue to see that in the 10-year plan, but we continue to see the important jobs. I appreciate the fiscal constraints, funding levels, reduction in gas tax, tolls, but that's a project that is near and dear to a lot of our hearts here in Manchester. I did take a look at several of the projects and appreciate from bridges to trails to roads being included in the 10-year plan. Manchester's been getting, I believe, a good share of the funds, our fair share of the funds. I saw some construction and some of the projects pushed out of years, but after talking to Nate from Hampshire Planning and the DOT staff today, I'm convinced we're ready for construction projects to move forward. So I just want to thank you for all the time and energy you put into the 10-year plan. And thank you for your time.
Next speaker is Candy Synopsis. What's your name?
Samoyski. It's a tough one. I'll
I
give you a break.
apologize.
My name is Candy Zamoyski. Today I'm representing the Queen City Bicycle Collective and all of our constituents. Transportation plays such a huge role in our daily lives. We all have places to go, work, school, medical appointments, shopping trips, and social functions. However, not everyone has the same access to transportation. Many people in Manchester do not drive, whether for financial reasons, physical or mental limitations, environmental concerns, or other reasons. As we look to attract a younger workforce and create livable communities for those wishing to age in place, we must design our streets to prioritize the safety of our most vulnerable road users. We need more funding for alternative transportation forms and prioritize low-income areas where car ownership is disproportionately low. Thank you.
Move it on.
Thank you. I'm Paula Bedard. I live in Goffstown, and I'm here representing the Bike Walk Alliance of New Hampshire. We're the state's biking and walking advocacy organization. So our board has put together a number of recommendations that we want to submit against the 10-year plan. And so to start off, we'd like to urge the state to allocate significantly more funding for active transportation, biking and walking projects. We know the state's reliant on federal aid programs like TAP, RTP, and others. We urge the state to look for and research other sources for funding. For example, VTrans, the state of Vermont, has a small-scale grant program. We hope this can be investigated, and maybe the state of New Hampshire could implement something similar. The state of Maine similarly has programs that are specific to funding active transportation projects, and we hope that alternatives like that can be looked at. We know we need to add more funding to the pie. Bike Walk Alliance is willing to work with the department to help. We know that sometimes legislation is required to get these funding sources in place, and we're happy to help on issues like that. Secondly, we would really like the department to set a goal of making transportation facilities safe and accessible to pedestrians and bicyclists. To accomplish that goal, we urge the department to set design, construction, and maintain specific criteria, safety criteria. Performance criteria for bicycle and pedestrian safety, things that are not currently addressed, like target speeds and mode share, for example. Crashes involving pedestrians and bicyclists are events that are based on two things: vehicle and roadway design, and predictable reckless behavior of humans. Traffic can most effectively be controlled by design. Things like narrowing lanes, horizontal and vertical deflection, adding trees and medians, having one and only one lane in each direction, and having multiple activities in the highway. We urge the department to adopt a complete streets and safety design criteria that specifically keeps bicycles and pedestrian road users safe. Doing so keeps all road users safe, and it better accommodates people who do not own their own car or who do not use motor vehicles for transportation. Thirdly, We asked the department to end the practice of transferring funds out of the Transportation Alternative Set-Aside Program and instead fund all transportation alternative projects before making any transfers out of that program. Fourthly, please invest in cutting-edge data collection tools that have the ability to provide meaningful usage data on bicycle and pedestrian transportation users. This will develop meaningful metrics which we can measure. Please adopt a network approach to building out the state's active transportation network.
Please wrap it up. Time.
I'd also like to point out the crucial role that rail trails play, and that there's currently a significant gap in our statewide rail trail network, and that gap is the gap between Manchester and Concord. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Scott Masson.
I'm not going to go over that. Scott Masson, on the Allocate on the planning board. I just wanted to thank Councilman Gadsden for the improvements of the intersection 43 and 27 on our schedule. I'd like to thank the staff at the DOT as well. And just wanted to make the comment that that intersection continues to be very dangerous. Had fire chief full data for 2021. There's been 9 accidents and 3 of them have been real serious. So it continues to be a priority for me. That's it.
Thank you.
Bill, do you have anybody there to speak?
Council, we have 8 people in attendance virtually and 1 that would like to speak.
Okay. Your name, please?
Florian, you should be able to speak now.
Oh, can you hear me?
We can.
Perfect. My name is Florian. I would just quickly like to thank everyone involved in the tenure for their great work, also for everyone attending today for their involvement in all matters of public, including this. But I would like to use my time to echo the sentiment from QC Bike Collect and also the Lions. I've been living in southern New Hampshire for 6 years now, in Manchester, and I've seen some great things happen. Availability of alternative options of transport, especially in bike lanes, rail trails, all of those things. But there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in order non-driving a viable source of transportation in our state. We are trailing behind some other states in terms of public transportation, as well as transportation, and especially, as was said, the connection between Manchester and Concord, as well as the connection between Manchester and Nashua, in terms of rail trails for bikes, can be vastly improved. Another thing I would just like to call out is just last week we had a tragic accident of a retired police sergeant who died in a crash while she was cycling on Route 125 and was involved in a hit and run. That is just a tragic accident that should not be happening, and we can really do a lot of work to improve safety for cyclists, especially in our state and in our cities. Thank you.
Any other speakers, Bill?
No, that's it.
Any other speakers here? Anyone else like to speak? Seeing no other speakers, in November, Gadsden reconvened at the larger group to finalize recommendations to the governor. The then passed the plan to the legislature for additional public input in the document. Written comments regarding the draft highway This will be submitted to November 8th, 2021. Refer to agenda for details. With that, I'm going to close the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Recording stopped.